Students, I don't know if you know this about me, but before I was a math teacher, I was an investment banker in London, which means I would look at all these different types of stocks and bonds, and we'd trade them to different companies and different funds. And it was pretty interesting. I like being a math teacher better, but I'm glad that I did that because that experience is going to allow us to read this two-way data table up here and find some probabilities. So here I have the monthly equity performance for 3 different companies. Equity means that you own a piece of the company. So if you own a stock in a certain company, that means that you have an ownership share of it. And oftentimes that's referred to as equity. So the monthly equity performance for 3 companies. Mason Corporation, which makes products that are simply Mason. Amazing. That's their saying, not mine. Roller Skate. Clever, they make great roller skates. And then Harpsy, which is a musical instrument manufacturer. All right, and then we have the monthly equity performance. So over the months, Mason Corporation had 4 months of the year where they had large losses, losses that were more than 5%. They had 3 smaller losses that were between 0 and 5%. They had 3 gains that were between 0 and 5%. And then they had 2 large gains, more than 5%. So 2 of the months they did really, really well. And 4 of the months they did absolutely, abjectly horrific. Roller Skate, a little bit better here. They had fewer large losses, but more small losses. They had lots of small gains. 4 of the months they had small gains and just 1 large gain. So this company looks to be a little bit more stable than Mason. And then Harpsy, 2 large losses, 2 small losses, 2 small gains, and then 6 of the months they absolutely crushed it. So I hope that you owned Harpsy equity in the last year, but it's okay if you didn't because I actually made all 3 of these companies up right before the camera started filming. So don't worry if you didn't own equity in any of these businesses, they don't exist. But anyway, let's say that I picked a month out at random, right? I picked one of these months from one of these companies out at random. What's the probability that it was a large gain? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go over to the large gain column and we'll say 2 and 1 and 6 make 9. So my desired outcome is 9 divided by all of the outcomes. So I know there's 12 months in a year. So this will be 12, 12, and 12. So this is out of 36. And 9 does go into 36. So this is 4th. So the probability that I just go into this monthly equity performance, grab a company in a month, and it's a large gain is 1/4. So 1/4 of the time companies had a large gain, which is pretty good. Now this next one, I have this line here, which signifies given that. Right, and given that is going to focus my denominator because I don't want to look at all the outcomes anymore. I only want to look at the outcomes of large losses. So given that there was a large loss, you see that I'm like almost reading the second part first. That's how you want to read these given that problems. Given that there was a large loss, so large loss, 4 and 1 make 5 and 2 more make 7. Given that there was a large loss, what's the probability that Mason was the culprit? Well, Mason had 4 large losses. So it's actually really likely that if you know that there was a large loss, it was probably Mason who caused your equity portfolio to go boo, 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 boo. So sad. Mason had some pretty bad months out there. What about this one? What's the probability that you choose Harpsy or you get a small gain? Well, or means addition, right? Or means addition. Right, so in probability, we're going to want to add Harpsy. All right, Harpsy, 2, 2, 2, and 6. Yep, there's 12 months worth of Harpsy data. And small gains. Small gains, 3, 4, and 2. All right, so that makes 9. However, there's a little bit of overlap here because if you think about this as a Venn diagram, we have HARPCs and we have some small gains, and sometimes there's overlap where there's HARPC and a small gain. So we want to subtract out 2 of these. And we want to divide this by all possible outcomes, which is 36. So the probability that you have HARPC chosen at random or a small gain is, well, 9 minus 2 is 7. And 7 and 12 make 19. So we get 19/36. That's the probability that we have HARPC or a small gain. And then finally, we have large gain roller skate, right? What does this line mean? It means given that. So we need to focus our denominator because we're not going to be looking at all outcomes anymore. We want to know what's the probability that we randomly select roller skate out of, given that we're only looking at large gains. Well, large gains is 2 and 1 and 6, which is 9. And roller skate, out of the 9 possible outcomes, roller skate had only 1 of those. All right, so that probability is 1/9. So the probability that was roller skate, given that you're focused on large gains, is 1/9. So in this two-way data table, we were able to use compound probabilities, meaning the probability of one thing happening along with the probability of another thing happening. We had combined events. We had conditional probability with given that's. And we were also able to learn a little bit of financial knowledge about equity. Equity is just stock or ownership in a company. Hope you had a good time.